I just always think about what she'd be like if she had a chance to grow up. I miss her so much.
The Zodiac.
The classic unsolved American crime.
This is the Zodiac speaking.
It's America's most famous cold case.
Thomas for an interview. Take one.
Nobody has come close to cracking this for over 50 years.
I believe all the murders were committed by one person.
That doesn't make any sense. The ballistics don't match. The fingerprints don't match. The witness descriptions and survivor descriptions of the killer don't match.
This is the first time 32 letters have ever been analyzed with artificial intelligence.
I've never talked about it. I just assumed he might come for me.
I've been arrested as the Zodiac.
Did you kill Darlene?
What if there is no Zodiac Killer?
All right, no better way to start the show than that. Of course, the trailer from The Myth of the Zodiac. And of course, I had to play that just to hear my own voice say classic solved American crime, one of my go-tos. That's going to be a good documentary. And you know, the professor was begging to be able to wear his hat in that, but they did let him wear his Hawaiian shirts, which is great. And I know Tom just did a video with a little bit of a preview of The Myth of the Zodiac, which will be on Peacock. I think it's, you know, their stuff, it's streamed, but it doesn't like upload at midnight. I think it's going to be on at 6 p.m. Central. I'm not sure. I got to look it up. Thank you, Patty. Yeah, it came out great. My sister said she could tell it was me, but that they, you know, modified it a little bit. Of course they do. They compress it or whatnot, but I thought it sounded pretty darn good. So hopefully I'll get a little more in the documentary than just that. But you know what? I'd be happy with just that. That was pretty cool. Just hearing my voice in the trailer, it was pretty nice. But that's going to be good. It's going to be really good. Of course, it's looking at really hard Professor Horn's theory, the hoax theory, which is great. And I had no idea that they were going to interview Jim Crabtree. Of course, he's got like 100 names that all switch position, you know, James Douglas Crabtree or Douglas Crabtree or whatever. But I had no idea that he was going to be in it until I saw that trailer. I was like, wow. I mean, no matter what your theory is or what you believe, to get Crabtree in there and have the producer, that's Andrew Knock, the producer, asking him, did you kill Darlene? Which of course he was married to Darlene Ferrin before she married Dean Ferrin. And he's just a really suspicious guy. I mean, any way you look at it, he's definitely different. You know, I don't know if anyone's ever nailed down a photo of Crabtree from back in the day. You know, you see this one a lot. I'll put this up on the screen. Of course, that's Darlene on the right with this unidentified guy. Well, for a long, long time, people said that was Crabtree, but I'm almost sure it's not. And I think somebody at one point said it was Crabtree's friend, a guy named Fred, but you know, no one could verify that. And then this guy on the left, they thought that was possibly Jim Crabtree, but it was another Jim Crabtree that somebody found, and that's not the guy that's in the video. Obviously, the guy that's in the trailer for the Peacock show is a real Jim Crabtree. I'm pretty sure they got that right. And I know they did because I found another photo of him, maybe that was like 10 years old or something like that. It matches the guy that's going to be in the documentary. So that is awesome that they got him. I mean, no matter what, I mean, just who knows what he knows, but he says something like he was arrested as a Zodiac. I don't know. I mean, it'll be great to see how that comes out. And I know that Mike Morford actually interviewed him years ago. I don't remember, maybe 10 years. I don't know exactly when. And he asked Crabtree about Darlene and their marriage or something like that, or, you know, how it went. And he said a lot of disparaging things about his ex-wife. From what I recall from what Morford said somewhere online about, he said that he had nothing but bad things to say about Darlene. And so that's interesting. Of course, that's part of Horn's theory with the hoax theory that Crabtree was the one that shot Darlene and Mike at Blue Rock Springs late evening on July 4th of 1969. And it's interesting that we know that they drove to Blue Rock Springs Park. Supposedly they were going to go out and look for fireworks. They were going to go to Mr. Ed's restaurant. And I think they changed their mind at the last minute, or maybe not. And then they wound up going to Blue Rock Springs Park. I think I read at one point too that she was going to go meet somebody to buy some marijuana for Dean Farron or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of different stories out there, but apparently they were going to go to Mr. Ed's restaurant and then wound up going over to Blue Rock Springs Park. And you've seen that reenacted a bunch of times. Marlene's driving a Corvair. She pulls into Blue Rock Springs with Mike Mageau. Mike is on, obviously riding in the passenger seat. She pulls in, and I think at some point before midnight, there's some teenagers, like 3 cars come in. Hello. And it's a bunch of kids making a bunch of noise, and they set off some fireworks or something like that. And then they all leave towards the direction of Vallejo. And then another car comes in, parks about, I don't know exactly where. I think in the movie it parks almost directly behind Darlene's car, but they said this first car that came in parked about maybe 12 feet, not maybe exactly behind. I'm not really sure where, not alongside, but behind it from about 12 feet or so. And it turns off its headlights. And at this point, Darlene's headlights are off. The radio's playing, and I think Mike asked her, "Hey, you know who that is?" And that's when Darlene says, "Oh, don't worry about it," something like that. Well, then that car turns its lights back on, and then it leaves Blue Rock Springs Park. So roughly 5 minutes later, what Mike believes was the same exact car comes back and gets within about 10 feet or so of their bumper, parks in back, back of them with the headlights on. And then, famously, Mike thinks, oh, this must be the cops or something. So he starts getting his ID out. And I think that's when Darlene said maybe it was Richard or something. Mike recalled maybe she thought it was, maybe that's just a guy named Richard. So that's where that all comes into play. But then the killer, the Zodiac, gets out of his driver's side, of course, and walks over to Mike Mageau's window and starts shooting both of them. So he starts shooting Mike, and then the bullets go through. One goes through Mike, hits Darlene. And then, of course, Mike is thrashing around in pain. He throws himself into the back seat of the car. And then, the killer walks back to his car. Here's Mike in agony. So he comes back around and puts more rounds into Mike. So I always thought about it. If it's Crabtree, who I don't think either of these guys are, it was his beef with Mike, because Mike's out with his ex-wife, or would he be mad at Darlene? And then would he know that that's Darlene's car? I don't know, but I just always thought it was interesting that he gets out, the Zodiac gets out of his driver's side and walks over to the passenger side of Darlene's car to start shooting it up. So maybe, if it's just a random kill, maybe he thinks, on a lover's lane, typically the guy's going to be driving, especially back in 1969. I mean, I'd say 9 out of 10 times. I mean, no, it wasn't out of the question that a female might be driving her car to go over there. But I would think that if it was a random deal, that he's thinking he's going to encounter female on the passenger side. So that's just one thing I think about with that is I always go back to, why did he go over to Mike's side of the car and start shooting it up? But I don't know. It's going to be great. Whatever Crabtree says is going to be extremely interesting. I want to put my artwork back up here. This kind of got screwed up on PowerPoint, but you can see what I did with the face of this watch. Can you tell who made it to the face there? I don't know. I was proud of that. Even though it just screws up when I do a JPEG and I put it back into PowerPoint. Now I can only put PowerPoints up on the screen. But hey, Fire Pixie, it's going to be great. I can't wait to watch Professor Horn on that documentary. It's going to be great. He's earned it. I mean, he's been out there for a long, long time, and had his theory out there for a long time. So it deserves a big audience. And it's, I think it's gonna bring up a lot of different stuff. Of course, he'll talk about Hal Snook, which is great. He'll talk about Crabtree. And from what I recall, I think Professor Horn, and correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching this, or jump in the chat, or I'll give you a link to the live show. Isn't there a link between Hal Snook and Jim Crabtree, like a family link? I thought I recalled that from way back when. That would be an awesome link. And if you could tie in Fred Benally would be really cool, because everybody ever asked me, do you think it's more than maybe Cheney or Allen if there's a third or whatever? And I said, well, if I had absolutely had to pick a third person to be involved in the Zodiac crimes, would be Fred Benally, because he's just so creepy and weird. And so many of his phrases do turn up in the letters. I don't think Benally was Zodiac. He's way too thin and tall, but some of his phrasings there were so many that kind of showed up in the letters. Of course, Arthur Lee Allen had a trailer in Santa Rosa where Fred Benally was. And lately, I don't know if anybody saw the article, and I posted it, and I'll do it again in the community section, but Richard Grinnell had an article about it. Was basically, I don't know if somebody contacted Richard about it or not, but it basically debunked the Zodiac deep real estate ad that was in the Chronicle, because that came out like right after Fred Benally was killed in a head-on car accident. But I think they found out who that was, or somebody admitted that was them in the paper, just kind of another hoax type thing, not to go back to that word, something similar to the person that hoaxed the Bates had to die letter that they found out through DNA off the letter flap, by the way, is how they found out that guy hoaxed the letter to Sherry Joe Bates' father. So yeah, tying in Fred Benally, but I would love to see any connection between Crabtree and anybody, Hal Snook, or because I love connections like that too. That's one thing that Professor Horn and I definitely have in common, is making these connections. Avery Cheney, Avery anybody, Fred Benally to Crabtree or anything like that would be fantastic. Would be something I definitely want to see. Voodoo Baby, how are you? Hey, Captain J. Tucson. Appreciate that. That's gonna get up on the screen. Patty, of course. Tyler. Good seeing Tyler. Good question, Captain J. Yes, is the answer. Will it make it to the cutting? Will it make it into the film? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I did talk about him some for sure. So maybe that might make it in. All I know so far is my voice got in for that little part in the trailer, and that could be all that makes it, but it could be more. I honestly don't know, but I'm pretty comfortable that some Cheney stuff will make it into the show. I think I'm allowed to say that there is going to be some Cheney stuff in the Peacock show, and I am really excited about it for sure. And there'll be some other stuff. I only know a little bit. I honestly don't know a whole lot more in the trailer and what I did, but there's definitely going to be some more surprises for sure. And then going back, I know I played the trailer. The first woman they showed, I'm sure that is Melody Long, and that was Betty Lou Jensen's sister. She had just one other sister. She didn't have a brother, or she only had one sibling, and that was Melody, whose last name now is Melody Long. So I'm sure that's Melody Long in the beginning, where they're visiting the burial site for Betty Lou. And then they show another lady who's sitting at a park bench table somewhere. I don't know who that is. I thought maybe at first it's not Pam Huckabee, but she looks kind of like Pam Huckabee, which of course is Darlene Ferrin's sister. And I think it could be Darlene's sister Linda, but I'm not sure. Darlene had two other sisters. She had Linda, and then of course Linda, Pam, and Christina, I believe. I think she had three sisters and a brother, which was Leo the third, Leo Swinnon. And I think that could be one of those two, or David Faraday had a brother and a sister. So maybe that's Faraday's sister that's in the scene. I honestly don't know. I'm curious. So obviously we'll know when the show comes out, but I'm just taking a couple wild guesses. That's either one of Darlene's other sisters other than Pam Huckabee, and it could be David Faraday's sister. And I've never seen them ever make a comment anywhere, either of the other two siblings of David Faraday, which would be good to know. I know that Darlene Ferrin's baby that was an infant at the time she was murdered, she still lives in San Francisco. She's doing fine. She's married. She works I think she's a dental hygienist, married, has two older kids, I think either late teens, maybe early 20s, and she's doing really well. I don't think she's ever been interviewed. It would have been maybe somebody, she might even be on this. I don't know. I know there's going to be a lot of surprises that I have no clue what it's going to be. I just know there's going to be some, but yeah, there's going to be some Cheney stuff in there for sure. Just kind of a backdrop, but the main thing is going to be horns, and then you're going to look some at Cheney. And I don't know of anything else, but it's going to be great. I mean, just that Crabtree part alone, I just can't wait to see what else he says or what else he remembers of that time, because he is such an interesting dude. I remember at one point I think he's kind of a liar. I think he used to claim he was in special forces, and I've got a list of like everybody who was ever in special forces in Vietnam, and his name's not on it. So I think he kind of lied. I think he had his adoptive brother said that wasn't true. He was like more of a typist in the military. So because somebody contacted me about Crabtree not too long ago, even before the trailer came out, he was asking me about Crabtree and did I know if he was in special forces and this kind of thing. And I was like, I don't think so. And just led me to believe the guy's kind of a liar. Yes, it all comes back to Bigfoot. I don't know, Jennifer. I'm thinking it's 2 hours. Maybe I'll look at the schedule because I know it's 2 parts and no commercials. So I'm thinking it's 2 hours. So I don't know if it's 6 Central, but I'll definitely send it to you. And, I don't want my sister to miss it because she's follows it closely, which is great. But I think it's 2 hours. I wish it was 4, but I think it's going to be a 2-part, 2 hours. I'm almost sure it's 2 hours long. So we'll see how much we can. You could fit quite a bit into 2 hours with no commercials. See, Steven, if 22 shot David Faraday was possibly a different brand of bullet and a second shooter killed David, the later the 10th empty 22 shell goes missing, could Stook have stolen it? I never heard that proposed. Who knows? Snook was Napa PD. So Faraday, that was in Benicia. So it was it Solano County, the jurisdiction over there. So that wasn't Snook's jurisdiction. Snook, if there was anything related to Lake Berryessa, Snook could have gotten because he was a Napa PD detective, but he wouldn't have presided at all over the Lake Herman Road shooting. So I know that might play into Richard's video. What is it? The 10-to-1 ratio about the last shell casing that could have come from a second shooter at Lake Herman Road. Maybe that's Cheney and maybe that's Allen getting his feet wet. I don't know. But interesting question for sure. But I don't know. Probably not. I'd say Snook didn't get a hold of anything from the Lake Herman crime because that wasn't his. Donovan, I won't put that up, but yeah, unfortunately, yes. She knew a lot of people in Vallejo. Oh, I hope so. If I got 15 to 20 minutes, I would be extremely happy. 15 to 20 minutes is a lot. That is a lot of TV time. That would be great. I'd be happy at 5, but 15 to 20 minutes, I'd be overjoyed. So we'll see, because I honestly don't know. They don't tell us anything. And Professor will even tell you that. He knows some things, but he doesn't know a whole lot. Like neither one of us has seen it. Of course not. They don't send us a copy and they say, "What do you think?" We find out when everybody else does. But it should be cool. Hey, Brant. You mean if Snook knew a second shooter would ruin it? I don't know. I'm pretty sure Snook would have known Dennis Lamb from Berryessa because Rayland was in Napa PD. Rayland was Dennis Lamb's brother. So Snook would have known. I'm pretty sure he would have known Dennis. I mean, it wasn't back then. It wasn't that big. And of course, Dennis Lamb kept working at the park for another 15 years, maybe after the Lake Berryessa attack. Dennis Lamb was still working there for a long, long time. I've only ever seen one picture of Dennis Lamb. Only one where he was in the military. I've never ever seen a second one. I mean, they're hard to get. I've seen a picture of I think Rayland from Napa Yearbook, but I've never seen a second photo of Dennis. You got that right. All right. He phrases that the right way. It would be Professor Horn's book, of course. And after that, it would be I don't know. I guess for case history, I like Michael Cole's book. Michael Cole's all three of them, Zodiac Revisited, are really good. I think the first one is great. I think he's definitely onto something. I don't agree with him on everything, but if you read, the general theory and the main thing that Michael Cole brings forward is the fact that the Zodiac was trying to line up these murder sites along radians, similar to Gareth Penn type deal, but it's more specific, and you got to read the book to totally understand where he's coming from and the background he gives and the research he's done, which years and years of research Michael Cole put into those books. And there's three. The first one is really gives you the whole meat of it, but get all three, but the first one is fantastic. He talks about, these sites were picked and he was just trying to get as close as he could to the radian. So it couldn't be like he couldn't have his exact spot, but he wanted to make it as close as possible. And of course, Michael Cole thinks that the Zodiac had knowledge of celestial navigation, and I won't argue that with him, of course, because I have a suspect that has that. But I would definitely say Michael Cole's books for sure. So get the first one, and then you get the other two, and it's called Zodiac Revisited by Michael Cole. I would highly recommend that. Mark Hewitt's first two books, good background on the case. But Michael Cole's does a lot of that too in that first book. So I'll go with Michael Cole's book. That's good. Good point, Dennis. Not that unusual. I want more than one type of ammo on you when hunting, and especially with 22. I grabbed a handful and put them in my pocket. That's a good point. That's for sure. I never even thought there was a Lake Herman. I mean, I guess there is, but it's called Lake Herman Road, but I never ever think about the lake. I mean, there is a Lake Berryessa, of course. But I never think of like because the Lake Herman Road was the name of it. So I'm sure that was named after a lake. I just never think about the actual lake. But where the murders happened was where a gated area is. It was a little turnout. But a cut through between Vallejo and Benicia, and then further on down the road, there's a pumping station, and then back over there. I mean, I've been there, but I've never. I've been up and down Lake Herman Road. I don't remember the actual Lake Herman, but it must be a lake. I've just never seen it. This is easy. Heck yeah, he is. Ned is as suspicious as they come. I mean, he's always like popping up in Germany or the Philippines, and I don't know exactly what he's doing, but I send him messages like, what are you eating, dude? What are you doing over there, Ned? Ned is an interesting guy, man. Ned's great. I'm gonna have Ned on soon, but we're not gonna do Zodiac. We're gonna do the Missy Beavers murder, because that's another one that Ned and I both like, is Missy Beavers. We need to do a Missy Beavers show. I mean, that still unsolved. The lady was killed in Texas. I don't remember the year. It's not too long ago. But yeah, Ned's as weird as they come. But being weird is not a crime. Yeah, it is a good case. It's a really good case. Ned is everywhere. I think they're going to come out with some new material on the Zodiac Killer channel. Of course, Ned is a host of that. But if there is, Jen, I don't know. That'd be a good question about Lake Berryessa, because some people think that the murder weapons could have been thrown in Lake Berryessa for that crime, because that was actually on a lake shore, unlike Lake Herman Road, was just a road turnout. But now that you said that, I'm gonna look at a map, because I've just never actually thought about the lake, because it's never come into play. But I don't know what kind of visibility that they have at Berryessa, but they have, like, they call it the glory hole or something, this giant hole where the water goes in and then it comes out through the dam side or something at Lake Berryessa. It's really, and then the lake is really low right now. Is anyone using AI to try and solve Zodiac or DB Cooper? Well, watch the documentary for Zodiac coming out on Peacock, because you'll know the answer to that part of it. And as far as DB Cooper, no, but they should. I wish they would. I wish they'd analyze the DB Cooper letters, but I only think one DB Cooper letter is authentic, and it's the one that's not signed. The only letter not signed DB Cooper, because DB Cooper would have never just latched on to the name DB Cooper when he gave the name Dan Cooper. So it would have been lame for him to just grab on to a media mistake and own it like that. But letter number 6 is signed a rich man, and I wish AI would get a hold of that and compare it to some writings in this 1967 Ramparts. They need to compare letter number 6 to the rantings of a madman in this magazine and see what they come up with. Because I know he likes to use things like Uncle and Sam, and I think Ted Braden wrote DB Cooper letter number 6 all the way. That's just exactly how Ted Braden spoke. Talks about lackey cops and world idiots. Those are phrases Braden would use all day long. What's 55 feet? Oh, Lake Herman's 280 acres? Really? I've been up and down Lake Herman Road. I never saw a lake, but I never thought about it either. That's pretty big. That's a big lake. 55 feet deep. I have to look how far the actual lake is from the murder site, because there's another one similar. I actually passed it up one time. I had to go back and find it. It's actually, sometimes you can find it on a GPS pinpoint. It'll say Zodiac Killer site or something where the turnout is on Lake Herman Road. Mills Hole is a classic. What's the best part of Bell? Of course, that's Art Bell. That's old Art Bell, which is the best. There's nothing better than There's nothing better than Art Bell, period. But Mel's Hole's the greatest, because what was the endless hole? I think it was in Colorado. Where was Mel's Hole? It was somewhere, I can't remember what state it was in. But didn't the guy throw his dead dog down the hole, and the dog leapt out? The dog came back to life down in the hole and jumped out of the hole. That's one of my favorites. I love Mel's Hole. That, the Area 51, and Bugs. Remember Bugs that shot one of your people, Patty? That terrible Bugs encountered a Bigfoot. I think that was Bugs was somewhere in Texas, and he claimed he shot and killed a Bigfoot. He felt threatened by it. He shot it, and then he thought he would go to jail because it was humanoid-like. So he thought he would go to jail for a murder charge. So he, I don't remember what Bugs said he did with the Bigfoot body. I guess he buried it in his backyard or something like that. But fortunately, I think Bugs was a bit of a storyteller. So I don't think, not that I don't believe it. I definitely believe in Patty Gimlin, no doubt about it. But I don't think Bugs actually killed a Bigfoot. Yeah, he did. I think he did. Yeah, he said he thought it was an automatic. I don't know if he said a 45, but he definitely described it as an automatic that he had holstered on his right side, and then the knife was in a sheath on his left side that was about a foot long blade. Oh, that's a great question. I love questions like that. Cheney would have been working some with Allen. That's a tough one. They're both way up there. I hate picking one. Probably Braden. Just because the McAfee Sogs are so convinced of it. All the pilots that, their sons from Air America, all that. There's so many of them. I mean, Billy Waugh. Probably Braden by a nose. But Cheney is at least one participant in 2 of the murders and part of the letter writing campaign. Definitely. Ted for the win. Yeah, like Madeline Brown. Everybody can remember who Madeline Brown is. If you're into the JFK conspiracy, Madeline Brown was the one that said that she was dating LBJ, and that LBJ was the father of her son, and she tells this story. I don't know, some ranch in Texas, East Texas somewhere. She's got that Texas accent that I'm so used to growing up here, and she's so believable. She tells these vivid stories about being LBJ's mistress. And, she talks about this party at Clint Murchison's house, who was the first owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and how they were all these different people there. And at that party, there were people there that was already conspiring that they were going to kill JFK. Everybody she could think of was at this party, but it later gets debunked, because if you look into it, Clint Murchison wasn't even living at that house at that time that she said the party happened. He was already pretty old, living on a ranch in East Texas, so he wasn't there. And then I can't believe there's somebody else that flew in, but she basically turned out to not be a total liar, but about half of what she said is not true. And then she found another man that she claimed was also the father of her son, after accusing LBJ for years and trying to prove it or whatever. But Madeline Browder's turned out to be a total nut. But I think she did date LBJ. Good question. Need to ask Brian if he knew the difference between a 45 911 and other different 9mm. I seriously doubt he did. He didn't sound like a gun type at all when he talks about it. And this is the Zodiac speaking. I don't think he would. I think he knew enough that it was automatic. And it was interesting that he asked the Zodiac if the gun was loaded, and then that gives you a lot of insight into the Zodiac, because he took the magazine out and showed Brian that it had a full magazine. So that's interesting, because anybody else would have just said, I'm going to stab you anyway. Why do I have to show you that the gun? But he did, and he was nervous. Brian remembered that the Zodiac was nervous. And I mean, think if he's already done Lake Herman Road at least and Blue Rock Springs, he's nervous at Lake Berryessa. And if I remember, Brian's account said that Zodiac said that to Brian, I'm nervous. Said those words, I'm nervous, which is insane. Who's Jumbo? I don't know who Jumbo is. But I don't believe, I believe some of what Madeline Brown says, that's why she's so believable. She's mixing in truth with fiction. But the party at Clint Murchison's house never happened. Never happened. He was living on a ranch somewhere. And I have a connection to Clint Murchison. His aunt, Clint Murchison's aunt, was my great-great-great-grandfather's second wife. That's my one of my little JFK tie-ins. Yeah, Lake Herman. Oh, Lake Herman is a reservoir. Okay, let me put that up. Thanks for clearing that up. So there you are, Jen. Lake Herman is a reservoir located in Solano County, California, United States, situated near the town of Benicia. Okay, yeah, Lake Herman Road's a cut through from Benicia to Vallejo. So it's a reservoir. So it's not, an actual. They just call it Lake Herman. But yeah, I never saw it. Like, when you're driving down that road, you don't. Yeah, well, I would explain it, Robbie. It's a reservoir. But yeah, I guess that would be really small for a lake. Like, I don't know how big Berryessa is, but I'm sure it's huge. Area 51 caller. Love it. Are you talking about the guy in the airplane, Donovan? The guy in the airplane that's talking to Art, and he's going to fly over he's flying over Area 51, and he's getting chased or something in the airplane. I love that one. That's one of the best ever. I'd say, yeah, the Area 51, Bugs, and Mel's Hole. I'm sure I'm missing something else. Can't get enough of the old Art Bell. I don't know who Ruth Payne is. It sounds familiar though. I don't know from where. Who killed Tippett? I don't know who Tippett is. Who's Jumbo, Voodoo Baby? LBG. Oh my gosh, are you serious? Man, I'm glad I didn't know that much. Too much information. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. No, I'm not going to even repeat that. I think Madeline Brown did know him, though. I think she definitely knew him. Oh, I agree with that. There was another article out about Lazar lately. And that's my daughter's favorite video that I did, 4.5 years ago. How bizarre is Bob Lazar? My daughter's memorized every word of that video. But if you go back and watch it, as rough as it is, I basically say the same thing. Like, I don't believe Bob Lazar. I don't. And I do believe in Roswell. 100%. I believe a flying saucer crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, big time. But I do not believe Bob Lazar. I think he's definitely being deceptive. I didn't see that one of the body language panel, though, that they did one on Lazar, but I want to watch it. I'm going to go find it. That would be awesome. There was another article that came out. I don't know if it's older or not, but I haven't had a chance to read it about, some of the stuff in Lazar's past. Of course, Lazar said he went to MIT, could never be proven. He doesn't show up in the yearbook. That doesn't mean anything. Like, Don Cheney doesn't show up in the Bakersfield Junior College yearbook, but I know he went there because there's 3 different articles in the Bakersfield, California, where he's talking about a class field trip he's in, and obviously it's in its wedding announcement too that he went there, and no one's going to lie being from that town. So, it doesn't mean he didn't go to MIT, but it's pretty unlikely he went to MIT. He didn't have the education to be that to have that kind of level of clearance. Yes, he was. LBJ was definitely a little different. The lady who housed Oswald and Marina was Payne. Reference America's Untold Stories. I'll have to check that out. You agree about Roswell? Yeah, the other. I don't know that. No, I have never heard of that one. I've never heard of that other one. I'm going to see if I can get Don Schmidt on the show and interview him. That wrote the Roswell book. I've got that book. It's really good. I wonder if anybody, the first people that saw the crash were they were geology students from Texas Tech University they were some of the first people that saw the crash before the military guys started moving in and got them out of there. And their professor was there, and I don't remember how many students, maybe 6 or 7 from Texas Tech. I wonder if their stories ever got out or how much they saw. No, I didn't know that. I've seen clips of that where Bob Lazar was on Joe Rogan's show. Because he probably didn't. Yeah, Bob Lazar is just a good liar. He's just a really good liar. He's an interesting guy. He may know something, but he didn't. He did not have that level of access, and he did not see whatever craft they have. It's if you did, you wouldn't be talking about it. I know somebody that told me who lived in New Mexico for a long, long time that they knew an ex-colonel that had knowledge of Roswell, and this guy was murdered somewhere. And I think he lived in Santa Fe at the time, but he had knowledge of Roswell or something like that, and he just wound up in this really grisly murder. They don't know that it had anything to do with the fact that he had knowledge about Roswell, but they could never find this guy's killer. It was a full-bird colonel, military, was alive back when it happened. I don't think he was at Roswell, but he had knowledge of it somehow and told people that, and this guy winds up dead. UFOs come from Earth. The whole invasion idea is straight military industrial complex mindset. Just my 2 cents. Could be. You mean the ones that come out of the ocean and stuff? I don't know who that is. I didn't know that either. See how much we learn? Indian staff called LBJ Rufus Cornbread behind his back. Sounds like a fitting nickname for LBJ. And I did meet Governor Conley's son several times because he's one of my uncle's best friends, and he does not believe in a single shooter. He does not believe that was Lee Harvey Oswald alone, and his parents were in the car. I asked him, do you believe in the lone gunman theory? And he said that's bullshit. I mean, didn't even hesitate. And that has a little weight coming from a guy whose parents were riding in the car with JFK. Told me that personally and never forgot it. So he didn't go along with the narrative of the Warren Commission. The Lake Herman monster. But I do think Madeline Brown did date LBJ. I think she just made up that whole deal about the party. It's kind of like the painting party from the Zodiac. It's just completely fabricated out of nowhere. And it just over the years brings on a life of its own. He doesn't tie into Zodiac at all. We just started talking about JFK for whatever reason. It doesn't tie into Zodiac at all. There is a Kennedy tie into DB Cooper though, and I know I think I said it on Jerome's show the other day. But there is a DB Cooper tie to the Kennedy assassination, and that's from a guy named Lyle Cameron, and he ran a place called the Elsinore Jump Center in Lake Elsinore, California, where my friend Nikki lives, and Nikki's a big time DB Cooper researcher, but Lyle Cameron came forward months after the DB Cooper hijacking in 1971 and said that a guy came to Lake Elsinore Jump Center, I think 2 or 3 months before the Cooper hijacking, and he was asking questions about how to jump out of a 727. And Lyle remember meeting the guy. He said because he was wearing a military jump boot called a Cochrane boot, and he said the guy had Raleigh cigarette coupons on him. So obviously DB Cooper smoked Raleigh filter tips. So Lyle Cameron called the FBI about this, saying, "Hey, this guy sounds like your man. Can you describe him?" And he tried to describe him, this, and that. So sometimes he's referred to that this person that showed up there is referred to as the Elsinore Ghost, who may or may not have been DB Cooper asking questions about what it's like to jump out of a 727 that he remembered. But the tie-in is that Jack Ruby, who of course is the assassin of Lee Harvey Oswald, the supposed assassin of JFK, they found the second person. I don't know how they found the records or not, because this is before cell phones, 1963. But the second person that Jack Ruby talked to on the phone before he was killed was Lyle Cameron. There's your tie into DB Cooper. I know that's going down the rabbit hole. I know too many rabbit holes. I'm all over the place. Yeah, it's your fault, Patty. You and your kind. You're just mad about bugs. Yeah, that was the tie-in, because Madeline Brown is just yes, that's a good point. Because we're talking about Bob Lazar, and Bob Lazar, of course, said he saw a UFO at Area 51. He's a really strange guy. He's a really smart guy. He's just a good liar, and that's what Madeline Brown is. She's a good. There's really convincing liars out there, and those are two of the best. That's the tie-in. Yes, is Bob Lazar, but anybody directly in Zodiac, I don't know who would be like that. Ted Braden was the second shooter. You know what? He could have been. That could be what John Plaster knows about Braden that he won't say on a phone line, was that Ted Braden was on the grassy knoll. Could have been. I definitely think he was Bay of Pigs. No doubt. I think Braden was absolutely at the Bay of Pigs, and there was a stalker or something that was hounding. It wasn't Tina Mucklow. It was Florence Schaffner and the other stewardess on the DB Cooper plane. There was 3 of them. Of course, Alice Hancock was the third, but she was in first class. But a man was stalking Florence Schaffner, who said that he knew who DB Cooper was, and that he was at the Bay of Pigs, and he was a Green Beret, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, this guy could have just been a nut, but maybe he knew something about Braden. Yeah, it's hard to track, Jim. I'm starting to get confused. Zodiac, aliens, JFK, DB Cooper, free balling Monday. I know. It doesn't feel like Monday. It's because tomorrow's the 4th. But happy 4th of July, everybody, before I forget. Yeah, but no, that's a good tie-in. Yeah, Bob Lazar, I don't believe. And I don't believe Madeline Brown. Saying hi from vacation in Philly. Cool. It's probably a little cooler in Philly than it is here. What was I thinking about Philly the other day? I don't remember why. There was a reason. How much of the DB Cooper cash was found? This is open line, so even though it's a Zodcast, you can always ask any question. It was a little over $5,800, Nathan. a little over $5,800 in 3 different bundles, I think they call them, which were 3 stacks of bills on top of each other. That some of the rubber bands were still intact on the sides. They were corroded, but they were on the side. So it's amazing that some rubber bands would survive if the money was planted the night of the jump, because the money was found in 1980. Of course, the jump was in November of 71. So you're talking a good solid over 8 years of wherever that money was. So I think a big discussion in DB Cooper world was were the rubber bands already on it when the money was given to Cooper, or were they not? So that's one of those, get those guys started on that. They'll never stop. Yeah, absolutely. He did. I talked to 2 McVie Sogs that knew Ted Braden in Vietnam that said he would have absolutely known that you could jump one. Leonard Tilley told me that, and Al Keller told me that. They said Braden would have absolutely known that you could jump an Astair on a 727. In 1966, he said that Braden would have known that as early as 66. Hey, Pedro. You think Madeline did have his kid? They paid money to her until LBJ died, I was told. I know she accused somebody else of having that same son, though, because I think she only had one son. And I'm almost sure that she accused another guy. I think he was wealthy, but not as well known as LBJ. But I'm almost sure of that, Pedro, that she accused another guy. Maybe when the LBJ thing fell apart. But she looked like she was on a pretty nice ranch when she tells that story. But the Murkison story, it cannot be true. It can't be, because he wasn't there. I mean, why would there be a party at Clint Murkison's house in Dallas when Clint's not there? I mean, he in that year, 63, he's already living out in East Texas somewhere. Like I think the house was gone. I mean, they was not even going back to it, from what I know. And that's coming from someone with a family tie into them. I agree, 100%. I know I drive people crazy when I say this. That money was planted. Didn't come from a dredge. It didn't get just washed up with 3 on top of each other like Brian remembered. That money was planted all day long. And it's also interesting that the money's found just 3 or 4 months after In Search of with Leonard Nimoy airs, which is the first time people really thought about, the full nationwide popular TV show covers DB Cooper. Because before that, it was all, a magazine article, newspaper articles when it happened. But when In Search of covered it, it was like new life. Like a lot of people that probably just missed it for whatever reason, now they saw it, because you got, I don't know, Mr. Spock's talking about it on a major TV show. And then months after that story airs, the Ingrams find the money on the shore of the Tina Bar. Yeah, you can't. That story can't be true. The party, it's impossible. Murchison was not living there when she said that party happened. Who was the person that came in that she said flew in that day that went to the party? I can't remember. Was it Nixon? I don't remember. Somebody else that flew in from somewhere to go there, that they all were in a room at the Murchison house and they all talked about how they were going to get rid of JFK. Yeah, I've heard that too, Nathan. Lake Berryessa murders were filmed, hence the costume. The idea is fascinating. Yeah, that was like a snuff film or something. That is a fascinating idea. Yeah, I've heard that. I think Professor Horn talks about that, but that wouldn't really play into Dennis Lamb being involved. I don't know why Dennis Lamb would have anything to do with that, but I've heard of that, and I think Professor even talks about who the filmmaker might have been, but I don't know if he ties that back into Dennis Land or not. Because, of course, Dennis was the park ranger. But, yeah, I've heard that. I think he knew who the filmmaker was that was doing stuff like snuff films. Yeah, that's a crazy thought. What's it on? America's Untold Stories? Is that on YouTube? Seems like I've heard of it. I know Unsolved Mysteries had all these stories, too. Of course, Unsolved Mysteries never covered Zodiac, to my knowledge, ever. Obviously, they did DB Cooper twice. But they did one longer one and then a shorter one, I think, from the same stuff. Of course, They covered Roswell because guy I met was the one of the producers on it. Hey Anthony, how you been? You haven't done any Cooper in a while, man. You need another Cooper video. Go check out Anthony's channel. Good stuff. He does a lot of finance, and then he likes to do some Cooper videos when he gets time, which would be great. So don't miss me on July 11th, Anthony Peacock, Myth of the Zodiac. And they did ask me, what else do you cover? Do you like other, serial killers? I said, no, I cover DB Cooper. And like, please put that on this TV show. It's Ted Braden. If you put any of my footage in at all, just cover that part, please. America's Untold Stories has a series on JFK. Yeah, I'll check it out. I know Jerome likes JFK a lot. I like it. I've never been, I don't know all of it. There's some people that are just like encyclopedias for that. It's like I struggled just to keep it all together with Zodiac, Cooper, Yuba County 5, and then the missing cases people that that I try to keep up with. It'd be hard to really totally dig into something, and know it really well, like backward and forward. Like Delphi, I try to keep up with Delphi. I got, my friend Michael knows it well, and I'm gonna have Michael on soon. We're gonna do a Delphi show because he knows Delphi backward and forward. He knows the timeline. I know it's dark. I try not to get into stuff real dark, like John Bonet. It's just so bad. It's just, ugh. There's just some cases that Zodiac's bad. People were killed. Their siblings are still out there, like the video will show. But some of these like Delphi are still so like it's almost like it happened yesterday. Even though that was 2017, but it's just so awful. And like I said on Noreen's show, I don't think Richard Allen. Now I'm going to another case. I don't think Richard Allen, who was arrested for the Delphi murders, he's not going to make it to trial. That trial's not till January next year. He's either going to die in jail or commit suicide. That's my prediction on Delphi. Allen is not going to make it. He hasn't given up any co-conspirators. Maybe he acted alone. Some people might have had knowledge of it, but I think he most likely acted alone. Nothing new to say about Cooper. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think with Cooper, everybody's kind of waiting to see if Tina's movie gets made because, maybe if they do any kind of media around the movie, maybe Tina will reveal some things that she remembers because that's really it. I mean, as far as Cooper goes, everybody can have their guy. They can go on about McCoy or, I know you, Anthony, think he died, in the river or whatever. And that's, everybody's free to have their own opinion on who it was. Did he survive or did he die? But the only way we forward DB Cooper at all is going to be her memory, for better or worse. It's one woman's memory and what she recalls as far as, look like this guy, that guy. Of course, we know she ruled out Robert Rackstraw, but any way to forward it all is down to Tina Mucklow's memory. It's not going to come from the hair slide or DNA from the tie. It's just that stuff's gone. Cigarettes are long gone, which is, you know how I feel about the cigarettes and the hair that are gone. Yeah, it was Nixon. So I got that right. Okay. Thanks, Pedro. Nixon was in Dallas and he left that morning. Do you think that's coincidence? I don't know. I do think you're right. Yeah, that's why I said Nixon earlier, but you're right. Thanks for confirming that. Yeah, I think it was confirmed that Nixon was there, but there was no way there was a party at Murkison's house. There was no way. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even living there. I think that's been completely debunked that there was a party at Clint Murkison's house. I mean, he maybe still owned the house, but he was not living there. He was pretty old at the time. I mean, I don't know how old he was when I think it was Clint Jr. that actually owned the Cowboys. I remember it was Clint Jr. was the original owner of the Cowboys. So it wasn't Senior, and Senior's was the house. It wasn't Junior's that Madeline Brown talks about. I agree with that. What are the chances of back to Zodiac? What's the chances of a suspect having a Zodiac watch? You're speaking my language, Donovan. I mean, I say it all the time. Let's put this back up. Okay, this is a special model of a Zodiac watch because this is the DC edition. I love that. I mean, this slide got screwed up where you could see the face over the watch, but this is a cool looking watch, by the way. I'd love to have this watch. It's great. I mean, they have nice looking watches, and Zodiac watches are not cheap. They're nice Swiss watches. I bet you this watch right here is probably $800 or $900 easily, maybe more. This could be a $1,200 watch. They're not cheap at all. They're very, very good dive watches and skin diving watches. But you see here the name Zodiac and you see the cross circle. Those all go together with this wristwatch, period. And Alan had that watch that he got, of course, to say it like a broken record, that he got for Christmas of 1967, not 8, 67, with his brother Ron. His younger brother Ron got an identical Zodiac watch, Seawolf model. That's actually a Seawolf model, but that's a newer one, of course. But the only time that the word Zodiac goes with the cross circle is that wristwatch. There's just come on. Alan had that watch way before Lake Herman Road. And then you go to the fact that Alan misspelled words for comedic effect. I think Stefan Nyberg did a great job with such a simple example with satirical and comedy, showing that all the Zodiac did was switch out one letter from each into the other word to make it still sound the same phonetically. The Zodiac could obviously spell. He did that, as tongue in cheek, is comedy type thing. Oddly, the same habit that Arthur Lee Allen had before Lake Herman Road. So let's just talk about that. Having the watch and misspelling words purposely to be funny, where you read it and it still sound the same, like eggs, AIGS. Arthur Lee Allen would sometimes sound letters. He went by the nickname Big Al, and he would spell big, BEEG, because if he spelled it BEG, that's beg, but BEEG, that's big. And Alan did that before the letters and had the watch. There's way too much going on with Arthur Lee Allen to walk away from that. And you talk about Phil Tucker seeing the ciphers in the metal box with his wife that wanted to borrow them. This is all before Lake Herman Road, just before stuff is in the papers. His sister-in-law says he used this phrase like triggerback, and that shows up in there. Karen Allen, remember getting a Christmas card from Arthur Lee Allen that said it had Christmas with 2 S's like the Zodiac did. Come on. Allen's involved in these letters. I've said it from day one. No doubt about it. Anthony Tom Roach was kidnapped by a suspected serial killer in California who sent a letter after the kidnapping. I don't know. I've never heard of that. I'll have to look into it. If anybody else has heard of that, let me know. I'll check it out, Anthony. What does that mean? Is it? Is it it's a voiceover? I don't know. I'm almost afraid to ask. I'm learning all kind of new things. Who confessed? Who confessed, Pedro? Okay, I love easy ones. You're thinking of Kenny Christensen. It's not true. It actually got debunked years later. They think that he bought a house for cash, and that came out in the Brad Meltzer Decoded show about Kenny Christensen. Anthony knows this well. That got debunked. He had a promissory note on the house, and I think he did have some money when he passed away. He had a pretty expensive coin collection, and I don't know, maybe Anthony can clear me up, but I'm almost sure that he inherited. I think Kenny inherited some land that he later sold for some money. But the stuff about him having that much was pretty well debunked later on. And I know that Kenny's brother Lyle's the one that brought him forward, and Lyle was definitely trying to push for a movie, book deal, something. Of course, there is a book about Kenny called Into the Blast by Robert Blevins and Skip Porteous. So that didn't have anything to do with that. I think it's likely he died in the river, but I'm open to other possibilities and certainly think Ted Braden is a good candidate. Yeah, you've always said that, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I like Braden, and interesting that I got Braden from Bruce Smith and a guy named Snowman from the DB Cooper forum. And there's some guys on the DB Cooper forum that never reveal their real name, but some people like Bruce might know them or they'll find out who they are later. But some guys always remain anonymous somehow on the forum. Some really smart guys, and these guys have been into DB Cooper for like 25 years, hardcore online guys. And Snowman is back to talking about Braden again, which I think is really important. For some reason, Snowman is back onto Braden. And, I fully admit and appreciate Bruce and Snowman, because that's when I first read about Braden, when the MACV-SOG NDAs wore off and people went and asked them, because Elite Special Forces, hey, who among you do you think fits this bill? And they all said Ted Braden. I mean, and then I met a lot of these MACV-SOGs, talked to a lot of MACV-SOGs, and they told me, yes, him, never anybody else. So I think it's interesting that Snowman's talking about Braden again. And thanks to Nikki for telling me that, because I don't know who Snowman is. Obviously, I know Bruce is. I'm friends with Bruce. The hair, which hair? Not the Cooper hair. That's long gone. Yeah, I like Milty. Milty's pretty good. That's Nikki's guy, and he's interesting. I don't know how well the Rim Crew thing's holding up as far as the time. The patent versus when the tie. We know it's a 1964 tie, and the antimony patent was in the 54, 55. So there's some timing things around there. But yeah, he's interesting. He's definitely the best suspect that came out of the tie. Is Vordal. That's it, Pedro. You know the game. That's it. And I'm told Vallejo PD has some interest in that tag team. I think Vallejo PD actually cares about the case and actually wants to solve it. I think Vallejo PD, San Francisco PD could care less. I mean, it's a big city. They got plenty of problems, but Vallejo is like lost in time, and they would love to see the case solved. That's why Vallejo sent their letters in for advanced DNA testing, and nothing ever came back. And that was 6 years ago. Yes, he was discussed on BBOR. And then I wrote a little retort to that. I know you had Jeremy on there talking about Kenny. Kenny's not bad. I think Anthony will agree with me. And I stole this from you, Anthony. Is why would Kenny? And we understand that Kenny, he worked for Northwest Orient Airlines. That's the airline that was, the heist was pulled off from. And anybody doing that would have realized that the insurance company is going to, wind up footing the bill for the Cooper loot. But even though Kenny did international flights for Northwest Orient, Anthony made this point, was Kenny Christian's not going to risk it. Well, I mean, he's going to be in Portland International Airport, where he's worked for years, and he's just going to casually rob his own airline. I mean, he could have been spotted by anybody at Portland, somebody on the plane, unless he knew exactly who was going to be on that plane. And there's no way he could have. I mean, he could have. I mean, that's a small world back then. In 1971, and he works for the same airline. That would have been totally insane for Kenny to rob his own airline. I mean, people say, oh, well, he wanted to do it because he didn't make enough. He was a purser, and he was mad about the strike and all that. Well, if he had so much money all the time, why would he be worried about what he was making? So that kind of goes contra to that. And another thing is Kenny was almost totally bald by then, and Cooper was described as having a receding hairline. So Kenny would have to be like a Lex Luthor genius to come up with a toupee that was already balding. Like he's almost totally bald, and he's got a toupee that's got a receding hairline. I mean, that's not that that's impossible, but that's like, there's no need for it. If you're either going to wear a wig or not, and if he's going to hide being bald, why wouldn't he just wear a hat? why would he go to all that trouble? Kenny was really pale. Cooper was described as swarthy. Uh, his brother's the one that you always got to look where these suspects come from. And Kenny comes from his brother Lyle, and Lyle definitely was caught trying to make money off of this story of his brother being Cooper. So it was a money deal for Lyle. So I think back in the day Kenny was okay. I think he's a mediocre suspect in a world of suspects like God, I don't know. There's so many bad ones like Dwayne Weber. How is Dwayne Weber even mentioned? I mean, Dwayne Weber's terrible. Or Walter Recca. God, Walter Recca. Do a Walter Recca video, Anthony, about jumping out. I mean, the people that support him get so upset. We don't know. I know Vordal, according to his grandson, didn't remember him ever smoking, but I know a couple of his children are still alive. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Nikki found out more about it. I'll ask Nikki if he found out any more about that. As I know, as far as his grandson said, he didn't recall his grandfather being a smoker. That's true. But maybe they found out more. But I know that Vordal's grandson, he said he was not a smoker. Who's Murdoch? From the A-Team? Dun, 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 dun. Anything about the A-Team is good. John Armstrong? You set that up, Pedro. Seriously. That's a good point. Zodiac handwriting style, grammar, spelling, and sentence structure were a blend of both DC and ALA for confusion. I believe that. There's you look at the Cheney letter to who, I hate to mention, there's letters that definitely look like the paper was turned all the way around, completely around, and a letter was written up with the page upside down and then flipped back over. And then, of course, you have Cheney misspelling the word victim. That another word that Zodiac misspelled, not the same way, but misspelled victim. But I agree. I agree with you. I think some of the letters were what you're saying there. I think the structure was a blend of DC, Cheney, and Allen for confusion. Some of the phrasings in there are so much like Allen and who's the guy, Peter, somebody that did a lot of work on the Allen stuff. He's a big proponent for Allen being Zodiac, and man, I don't know why the hardcore Allen people are so reluctant to bring on Cheney. I just never understood that. I don't know why they're so resistant to it. Like, I think because Allen comes from Cheney, and that's why they have like Cheney is this truth teller, so Allen can still be the Zodiac. That's nonsense because we know Cheney lied. Okay, he lied. He told Michael Butterfield some insane lies that are documented. I mean, Cheney lied. Okay, he's a liar. Everybody agrees with that. So the pro Allen people need to give that up and accept the fact that this is a duo in a lot of ways, and they can't do it. But Peter Ackerman's the guy I'm thinking of, and he found a lot of Allen, Arthur Allen type phrases that come up a lot. But yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think it was the phrasing from both of them and some writing from both, and then Allen doing the mailings. Anytime. Okay, thanks, Pedro. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I knew Anthony did. You did a pretty good dive into Kenny. His mortgage documents are online. He was a single guy who had nothing. That's a good point too. Great point. He was a single guy, had nothing to spend his money on. Yeah, he had no kids. So it makes sense that he could save money, and his mortgage was for like 19 years. Yeah, he did have a mortgage. And then I think he bought somebody an appliance. It wasn't Bernie Giesman, his buddy. It wasn't his wife. Somebody else that they knew out there that he bought. I don't remember. It was a refrigerator or something, but the Brad Meltzer show was great. It was. He did a good job. And I mean, you watch that, it's well produced. You watch that show and you think that Kenny's probably DB Cooper because he did such a good job with that show. I know that Robert Blevins was in it. And Blevins says every other day he'll come onto a DB Cooper forum and saying, I'm done with this. I'm never coming back. I'm going to go take my dogs and cats and ride off into the sunset. And then he comes back 2 or 3 months later, still arguing with the same guys. But I don't know. Robert seems like a nice enough guy, despite what Bruce said about him. You didn't hear that here, Bruce. I never said that. So no great influx of cash in the early 70s. True. That was all debunked. It really was. I mean, when you watch the Decoded show or if you read the book, all the money stuff was debunked. But I did read somewhere that he did maybe sell some land that he inherited at one point. And of course, he was living in Washington State where the land prices went crazy. But I agree with you, Anthony. Why would you rob your own airline? Getting spotted at the airport would have been extremely high. There's no way he would have psychically known who's going to be there. And even if he was wearing his sunglasses, somebody's going to notice you. I mean, way, way too much of a risk. And if you believe, like I do, that he had a decent level of skydiving experience, that isn't Kenny. Kenny was he had some static line training to be in World War II, to fight in the Pacific. The war ended before he ever got anywhere. I think he did get over to Japan, but he never saw combat, if I recall. But he had a few static line jumps where you hook on and then it pulls your parachute out for you. You don't have, it's nothing about free falling. That is not much preparation for what DB Cooper did, is what Kenny had. I mean, and that was back in 1944. So that's not going to be much help doing a free fall with complete cloud cover in 1971. And Kenny even wrote home to his parents about how he hated jumping out of planes. He did. There's a letter where he wrote home, said, I hate it. So he's not some great parachutist at all. Why is the poor airline's luggage person who died? Oh, you mean who? Yeah, that's who we're talking about. Yeah, that's Kenny. Yeah, I'm looking at the old one. I'm looking at the old comment I already read. Oh my gosh, is that true? I actually had a civil conversation back and forth with the McCoy guy, and I will say this, I won't say he did. I got to give Ryan Burns a lot of credit. Ryan had some FBI documents because I think Ryan's memorized every FBI 302 about DB Cooper. Not only did he invent the system where you can just put in a search term to find out anything about DB Cooper you want, I think Ryan's probably memorized them all. But what Ryan did, there was some McCoy reference FBI 302s from the McCoy hijacking. Ryan, because Ryan's writing a book about all the other copycats, and it's going to be great. And he did there's going to be a huge section about McCoy because McCoy's fascinating. I mean, any way you look at it, his story's fascinating. But Ryan was able to unredact a lot of the redactions in some of these FBI documents perfectly. They're talking about his wife and her involvement in this and that, and you read those and it takes McCoy out. I mean, if I did a show with Ryan and Mark Andrade, who knows the FBI stuff on McCoy really well, I think it would take McCoy out as a suspect, in my opinion. It would take him out. Just because his 2 young children believe he was Cooper means nothing. It means nothing. I mean, that's, if his children want to believe he was Cooper to make his legacy a little better than what it was, fine. That doesn't make him DB Cooper. It doesn't. Dan Greider finding a parachute that had D rings on it does not make McCoy DB Cooper. Well, that's one thing we know about the parachutes is they did not have D rings on it, where you could attach the reserve parachute to the front. That's fact. The parachute that Cooper jumped with did not have the rings on it. So it was never going to have a reserve. So it's a moot point about Sewn Shut and Earl Cossey and all this mess. But the parachute that Greider found and presented was not Cooper's, none whatsoever. And do you think he would actually keep the parachute? Think about it. He's jumping into the Pacific Northwest in the heavy woods. Is he actually going to haul that heavy parachute out of the woods? Come on. He's going to bury it. It's nonsense. Richard Floyd McCoy was not DB Cooper. I'm more convinced of that than ever. Seeing what Ryan did, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I mean, great story, but he wasn't DB Cooper. DB Cooper's not going to hitchhike from 16-year-old Pete Zimmerman and have him drop him off in his front yard that McCoy did. I think DB Cooper was too smart for that. He asked for his notes back. I mean, he really didn't make any mistakes that I saw. He really didn't. McCoy made everything McCoy did was a mistake. Yeah, Uncle Jim, do you know who fixed that problem and who made the another shout out to you, Burnsy, is Ryan's the one that fixed it. Ryan Burns is the one that took the horrible DB Cooper Wikipedia page that had Cooper sitting in the wrong seat and fixed it all. I mean, fixed it all. And added a great suspect in Ted Braden. So kudos to you, Ryan. You did a great job on that Wikipedia page. I wish somebody would fix the Zodiac page. It's terrible. I mean, it's whoever does the Zodiac Wikipedia page, you're fired. It's awful. I wish Ryan would take on the Zodiac page. I love the A-Team. Can't beat it. Yes. Definitely got to get back on Yuba County 5. We have a Facebook group. I don't know if you're on that or not, but it's private, but all you have to do is get let in by it's like me or another moderator. But there is a Facebook group. You just search Yuba County 5 on Facebook and you'll find our group. But we'll start getting that active again. And Tony's book, Tony Doug Wright's Yuba County 5 book is going to be out now in January. I know it's taken forever, but once it's finally out, it's going to, I think it'll be another resurgence in the Yuba County 5 because it's going to be a really, really far more of a deep dive than I've ever done is what Tony's doing. And I'm going to have Tony on again and do another really in-depth Yuba County 5 show because that's Tony's wheelhouse. Could be Chris. Because you think DB Cooper had a part. I love talking about DB Cooper. I could talk about DB Cooper for like days. I tend to think DB Cooper had a partner on the ground. That's why he did not need an exact location to jump. Yeah, maybe had a way to coordinate with him on the ground. You know, there was reports of the small plane flying around. I think they might have found one name of one of the pilots. Of course, you know, Ted Braden knew a local pilot really well, an old MACV-SOG named Richard Earl Jenkins, went by the name Big Earl. Murdoch disappeared in his plane crash on the Columbia in 71 before DB and a co-founder. No, I got to look that up. And I'm going to have to go back and look at all these comments. I'm missing good stuff. Tusky was bounced off Z case and assigned to pawn shop. Yep. And that's why another letter that wasn't confirmed to be Zodiac may have been talking about. I remember there was something that he did to taunt Tosky. Oh, it was the Scotch tape letter. It's like he said that he owns lots of chess sets all over California or something, and it was a reference to maybe a pawn, and he was trying to taunt Tosky for getting demoted. Yeah, Tosky was demoted to pawn detail because he got caught forging the letters, not the Zodiac letters. Some people think he did possibly forge the Zodiac letters, but he forged letters in another case trying to give himself praise, and he got caught for it. So then that's where the suspicion that he might have written some of the Zodiac letters. He went 1097. I'm here yelled from the Z case just stolen 8 tracks. He never used the radio again. I think you told me that before. It's hilarious. From the Zodiac case to stolen 8 tracks. He never used the radio again. You told him that, right, Pedro? Yeah, and Tosky had an ego. You yelled at him from the Zodiac case to stolen 8 tracks. That's hilarious. Tosky was an interesting guy. They could have been. Kenny and Bernie Geisman may have been doing. I think Kenny and Bernie were up to something. I don't know if it was the DB Cooper heist, but they were up to some form of no good. I don't know what it was. And I think whatever it was, Bernie's wife was probably in on it because Kenny spent a lot of time with Bernie and his wife. So I think they were up to something. So if Kenny did have some extra money, it could have been whatever he's smuggling from Asia. But I agree with I agree with Anthony. No way that guy's walking through Portland International robbing his own airline. It's insanity. I don't know. Maybe, Captain J. Maybe. Maybe he did. You know, the 78 letter is the one they said they got the best DNA sample from. And it's not even confirmed Zodiac. The one that Allen was tested against, I never even really knew that, but I do now. The one that Allen was tested against was a 78 letter that supposedly matched another of the 74 letters, but you can't take any of the DNA that SFPD collected for granted. I mean, it's crap. It's total crap. PCR testing, they had a terrible lab. All the letters were taken home by different cops, touched. Their family members passed the letters around at the dinner table. Hey, look at this. I mean, that literally happened. Zodiac letters that were held by the San Francisco Police Department were taken home by certain cops so their families could gawk over them over the dinner table. Fact. I think you asked me about him before, Pedro. Yeah. Fire it up. You got my email. He could have. He had, Cooper had some stuff on him that we don't know what in there. He had what's called a mystery bag that some people saw Cooper with, and we don't know what was in there. Could have been, I don't know. I don't know if it was big enough to have jump boots in it. And Cooper was not wearing loafers, by the way. That's crap. He wasn't wearing loafers. The only person that ever mentioned his shoes was Tina Mucklow that said what pebble grain, and they were ankle high. So a loafer is not ankle high. And Tina Mucklow is the only person that ever referenced D.B. Cooper's footwear, and she said ankle high. Loafers are not ankle high. He was not wearing loafers. I don't know where that comes from. Could it be? Yeah, it's always speculated how he got to the Portland International. I know. I'm all over the place. I'm like totally ADD. These questions are so good. I'm ADD. Definitely all over the place. But these are the ones I like the best. Cooper, Zodiac, Yuba County 5. I don't know if I could take on another one to the level of those though. I'd start really screwing up names and stuff. Like when I have to do background stuff. Like if I, filming something or a podcast, well, walk us through it. Well, DB Cooper, blah, blah, blah. And I always forget there was a plane involved. I mean, I'll tell I'm 10 minutes into it. Oh yeah, they were on an airplane. It gets confusing. Cooper didn't know where he was landing, and was time delayed. So doubtful he had a partner. He had flares though. Yeah, flares would have been good. Maybe the money left on the Tina bar was a tip for the accomplice, and he just never picked it up, or he didn't want to be caught with it because he knew all the serial numbers were written down. That's one theory out there. Maybe the money was left for an accomplice, and he just never came for it. We do know by the Citizen Sleuth's research that the money was planted in the summertime because of the diatoms. He could have had a partner. I always wonder if the small plane guy wasn't Braden's acquaintance. I'd say friend, and Richard Jenkins, because Jenkins definitely lived in near the drop zone and had a pilot's license and owned an airplane. Song member probably wouldn't need flares. If anybody's going to get out of that woods, is Braden. And it's not, when you talk about the woods that he jumped in that part of around Ariel or La Center, and this northeast of Vancouver, Washington, it's not as dense as people make it out to be. Like Darren Schaefer, who's obviously my friend and host of the Cooper Vortex, he's from Richland, Washington. I mean, that's right there. And he grew up there. He's a DB Cooper guy. He got into it, later, like when he was kind of growing up in the area, wasn't much of a Cooper fan until later. But he said it's not near as dense as people make it out to be. Like Darren said he's like no mountain man at all, but if you dropped him off in that area, not even being from there, he said he could find a road in a pretty short order. You could find a road out of almost any of that whole area of the center, the whole area, Ariel, that whole radius over there. It's not near as bad as people make it out to be. Do we know if Ted had any interest in comics? I don't know. I think I've asked that. I think I asked Altair that, and he didn't think so. But he definitely had ties to Belgium because he was in 5 Commando. Tons of Belgians there. He got recruited into 5 Commando in Brussels, Belgium. He obviously fought in World War II in Belgium, in the Battle of the Bulge. Such a great story about Braden during the Battle of the Bulge that Ryan found, which is great. But I don't know if he had interest in comics. But it was the Dan Cooper comic. He absolutely had been to Belgium, and he could have been exposed to it in 5 Commando because there was Belgians all over the place in 5 Commando in the Congo. And of course, the comics were definitely, I think they started in the late 50s, but it's a Franco-Belgian publication. But, Ryan found I think it's called Air Tales or Air Trails. That was like it's an American thing. Like obviously Dan Cooper is a fictitious Canadian pilot in a Belgian comic, but Air Tales was an American publication that had a story in it about, fictional, I think it was a pilot as well named Dan Cooper, and it was an American book. So it could have come from that. If it came from the Dan Cooper comic, it could have come from, I think it was Air Trails maybe. But Ryan found that where they had a fictional story about a Dan Cooper pilot that I think parachuted, if I remember. That's all. Okay, there's Suffer. Oh yeah, that was Suffer. Hey Suffer, do you have Peacock? You don't want to trust me. You've been following me a long time. This is gonna be our night. This is gonna be our night. It's gonna happen on July 11th, my friend. In Belgium? That's a good point, Steven. It's been logged with a lot of good dirt roads on maps. That's true. The comic was in Spanish. I think I've heard that before. That would be pretty interesting. No, good seeing you, Suffer. You don't want to miss that show. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Could have been Uncle Jim. Money was a message and a tip for Tina. Of course, it was a Tina bar. I think originally the sign was TINA, and then at some point it got changed to TENA. But from what I know, it took a name from the guy that owned the land way back in the day, like so many places. It was named after him, and his name was pronounced Tena, TENA, Tena. So it's technically should be Tina Bar, but all the locals still call it Tina Bar. But it was named after a guy named Tena, TENA, and I think that's how it was pronounced. Was where the Fazio's land is. You're into Cooper when you know that, and you're really into DB Cooper when you know the name of the dog that Dwayne Ingram would take to the Tina Bar. That's how he knew. That's how Dwayne Ingram knew about it, according to Dwayne, because he would take his German Shepherd over there and run up and down the beach of the Tina Bar. That's how he knew what it was. The skittish police dog. In the DB Cooper, hey Trent, in the DB Cooper case, does anyone know if the passengers were allowed to take their carry-on luggage with them when they were released at Seattle? I don't know. Ryan, when you listen to this, if you're not on already, answer that, because I know you know the answer. I mean, Ryan knows the name of every passenger on that plane. Of course, we did that video. It's still on here. If you haven't seen that, Trent, where we show the video of the passengers getting off the plane. Actually, you can watch that, Trent, because if you go back and look at all my live shows, look at the one with Ryan Burns and it says DB Cooper passengers or something like that, because it shows every passenger getting off the plane and into the terminal or whatever, and Ryan identifies each one of them and gives their backstory. But I don't remember them carrying any. I don't think they were carrying any items. So I think the answer is going to be no. But if you watch that, it's the actual film footage of the people getting off the plane. And of course, Ryan could tell you all their birthdays and stuff. They're probably who knows what. He knows everything about every passenger. Mostly yes, mostly yes, but just tune in. That's all I can say. Tune in. We'll see how it goes, because I think there might be a little DC happening there too if we're lucky. We know my voice is in there for at least a couple of lines. At the very least, you'll hear my voice again if you watch it. But I'm hoping there'll be a little, little DC. There he is. Darnell. Shout out to Darnell. Hey, Darnell, I wanted to ask you because I totally forgot about it. I think you said something about on YouTube they were going to take away you can't block people anymore. Like it's going to let the trolls loose on YouTube. I hope that's not true, man, because I'm going to have a problem because I probably blocked half of YouTube. But I saw you put that on Facebook, Darnell. But shout out to my good friend Darnell and longtime supporter. My longest time supporter ever is going to be Suffer. But Darnell, you're up there too. I think they had a palm print, Captain J, or something. There was I'm not thinking Zodiac. I know I'm thinking Cooper. There was like a palm print or something. Never a clear fingerprint. But maybe there was a palm print or something from Cooper. But I don't. It's hardly ever discussed. Of course, McCoy left a clear fingerprint on his hijacking. Immediately got tied to him because he was obviously in the military. But I think with Cooper, it's like one, maybe a palm print, but no like individual fingerprints because they really weren't even sure what he touched. There's a video on YouTube showing the Cooper passengers deplaning with in-depth descriptions of all of them. What channel is that on, Steven? This one. That's my video. It's on Peacock. That's a NBC streaming. You might be able to get it for just like a month. It's NBC's streaming network called Peacock. I don't know, Chris. I'm not sure. I haven't been invited. I know it's in Seattle this year. So I'm sure Ryan will go. I'm sure Nikki will go. It'd be cool to hang out with them. I don't know if Darren will go this year. Darren didn't go last year, but I got to hang out with Darren in LA when we did the History Channel show. Had a blast with Darren. That was so cool. Because it all started with Darren for me. Yes. Yeah, Ryan knows his stuff, man. I mean, Ryan is a walking DB Cooper encyclopedia. The block button is removed. Now you have to go through other means of blocking them. As I have said before, I'm not very tech savvy, so I guess I'm in trouble. I might be too. The block button is removed. Does that mean like if you block somebody before, they can just come back on? God forbid. I hope not. Man, I hope not. I don't know. You know what? Maybe I will wind up at CooperCon. I don't know. I know it's in Seattle, so that means I might survive at least a day instead of half a day if they kept it in Portland. It's just slightly less violent in Seattle, I guess. So I think the block button is when you go to their, I don't know. I'll have to try it later. Now you have me curious, Darnell. But yeah, see if you have it, Suffer. You don't want to miss it. Don't want to miss it. I love it when these comments get cooking. Yeah, I hope that's not the case. You're not sure, you don't know who's scarier, the Zodiac or cyberbullies. I'm going with cyberbullies. I think they're far scarier than Zodiac. Nobody's worse. The cyberbullies are the worst. Especially if you can't block them and they can just go ballistic in your... If that's the case, I don't know. I mean, I'll always have a live stream, don't worry. But if that happens, I might not have a comment section. But I'll always have a live stream. So don't worry about that. That'll be here. But yes, if you like horror movies, definitely check out Darnell's channel, The Myers Fan 25. Good stuff. And Darnell does some cool unboxings and things like that. Man, they're already doing fireworks. It sounds like Blue Rock Springs out there on 4th of July. They start early here. They're legal here. All respect, I think Horn's theory doesn't make any sense because of Stein's shirt. Yeah, Stein's shirts is a problem with it. Oh yeah, it's good. It's good. I think it'll bring out a lot. Not just his, maybe some ideas in general. And I mean, the hoax theory is outside the box. That's why I've never had it. I liked a lot of things about it. Dennis Land ruined the crime scene. Just thinking out of the box like that in a case that's over 50 years old and unsolved, there's absolutely good, interesting stuff that can come out of that. And there's going to be anomalies. If we knew everything that happened in Zodiac, there's going to be 2 or 3 anomalies that, could play into that, along the lines of that theory. But yeah, the shirt, that's true, because if it's Hal Snook, it had to have been Hal Snook would have had to have been the one that either knew who killed Stein or was the person that killed Stein, because a good section was taken from Stein's shirt and was mailed in with 3 different correspondences, 2 Zodiac letters and the Melvin Belli letter. So Snook would have had to have gotten access to the rest of the shirt, I'd say, because the big piece is already missing on the tail. So Snook would have had to come in and gotten a piece of that shirt. And he was Napa PD, not SFPD. So yeah, that's that. And also the cross circle logo that Brian Hartnell saw on the Zodiac's hood. That kind of is a little tough to explain too, because why would, if Dennis Lamb was the attacker at Berryessa, why would he put the cross circle logo over that? What, especially if he was planning on killing Brian and Cecilia, why the need for the cross circle logo? If he was going to let one live, let's just say he planned to let one live to scare him and they were going to go back and tell people. Well, then he would have said, hey, this is the Zodiac, when he walked up and wearing that creepy hood and all that. But he didn't. He just said, I want your money and your car keys. But yet he had that on his chest. Why? He never explained what that was. He never said I'm Zodiac, but that was on his chest. Why? It meant something to him. So that kind of, I don't know how you would explain that. And if Brian doesn't live, we don't know about that. And that's Zodiac. That's on, some other crime, maybe Lake Herman or whatever. That's the copycat. But the real Zodiac is the guy wearing the symbol of the Zodiac. So that would not be what I would want to point out as the copycat crime. Not to be rude, but I find the hoax theory to be downright ridiculous. I don't think it's ridiculous at all. As I always say, the Zodiac was real, but he wasn't. Drew knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, you always said that, Darnell. You always said that the Zodiac wasn't real. So there should be aspects about it that come into that. Yeah, the Zodiac was real, but he wasn't. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a cartoon character. I call it the Zodiac persona. You live in San Francisco, right, Pedro? You still live in the city. I went to the coffee shop where Stein picked him up. Tourist trap for the theater crowd, but no staff knew anything when I asked them if they knew Stein picked up his last fare there, huh? Yeah, you think they'd remember. Suffer, if Dennis Lamb was the attacker, he would have destroyed the crimes. He would have destroyed the crime scene in the first. That there is wrong. He would have destroyed the crime. He did destroy the crime scene. What are you talking? He moved it. I mean, I guess he put the items in the blanket and then took the blanket back to the park headquarters. And then, of course, it was Dennis Land that picked up Brian Hartnell when Brian was crawling, bleeding to death, crawled to the road. It was Dennis Land that picked him up. And it's like a good friend of mine always says, don't you think, first of all, why wouldn't Dennis Land finish off Brian Hartnell, who was already wounded? And number 2, wouldn't Brian have picked up on his voice? Because if Land planned to, finish off Brian, and Brian had already heard his voice because he talked to the Zodiac, the only person that did, the only victim that did, and, wouldn't he have immediately, because he said if he ever heard the voice again, he would remember it. So obviously, I think he would have some words with Dennis after he picked him up. Why not use a typewriter instead of handwriting? True. Back then you can get them, but oh yeah, their typewriters were everywhere. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. Why not? You definitely get that creepier, it wouldn't the type stuff just doesn't have the creep factor of, I guess it didn't come up because this was actually I did this in the Zodiac font, but it didn't carry over. But the creepy, that handwriting, that creepy handwriting. I mean, maybe it was just scary. Yeah, if Lamb was the attacker, why didn't he finish off Brian when he had the chance? Exactly. I mean, if you thought he was going to ID you, unless you thought there was some other people right behind you, I mean, why wouldn't he just finish him off? I mean, it wouldn't have taken much. Brian was losing a lot of blood. Of course, he survived. Cecilia lived for about 2 days and then died. But yeah, why wouldn't Lamb just finish him off? And then another thing is I don't think Lamb would have had time to make it to that payphone that was by the car wash near Napa Police Headquarters from the time he was there. I know people have looked into that far more than me. I'm not an expert at it, but he would have been. I mean, it took a long time to go down Berryessa Knoxville Road all the way back into the town of Napa because even the cops, when they got the call about Berryessa, they were moving as fast as they could, but with traffic coming out of Napa to go up that 2-lane road, it's winding going up and, kind of hilly. It's not, it would take some time. If, it would have had to have been somebody else that made the phone call is what I'm saying. I don't think there's any way Dennis Land could have made the phone call. I listen often, really get involved. I think you got DB and the 2 Z guys right. Thanks, Pedro. Appreciate it, man. Hopefully we'll get a little publicity here soon. I think we will. I don't think, yeah, I mean, it's a soul killer. I mean, the thing is, no one's saying nobody died. I mean, nobody's saying, he's saying that different people, they were murdered. Nobody, nobody's disputing that. There was somebody that had the gun. There's somebody, with this theory, it was maybe Crabtree kills his ex-wife. Maybe Land at Berryessa, different things like that. There's just so many weirdos around. Like, Crabtree's weird. If I were Zodiac, I would take photos of my Zodiac watch on my wrist in front of my letters, envelopes, and murder scenes. Yeah, that would have been so obvious that it was Alan. Maybe that would have been all that would take to have gotten Alan convicted, was to take a picture of the watch. Because like I say, it's interesting that Alan was questioned so soon after Berryessa. Detective John Lynch interviewed Alan about, that's when Alan famously said, "Oh, I was going to go there that day, but went somewhere else instead." There's pictures of it. There's pictures of Stein's shirt. He took a big piece of it. There's pictures on the internet of Stein's shirt, and the shirt shows how big of a piece he cut or tore with his hands, which was a good piece. I mean, maybe 10 inches, 10 by 6 or something, a good sized piece. And one thing that I don't know is that if they took the 3 pieces that were mailed in, and of course there was not a piece mailed in with the Halloween card. Who try to argue that? Because I know in the Zodiac movie it shows Paul Avery opening the Halloween card and a piece falls out of Stein's shirt. Well, that never happened. I mean, it was with 2 other letters and then of course the Bell Eye letter. But I don't know if they ever put the pieces that came in and matched them to the shirt to figure out if there's any more missing. Because if that was the case, wouldn't that rule out anything like Snook or whatever getting another piece of it? Like, sneaking into the SFPD crime lab and getting parts of Stein's shirt if they took it, if they know that was what, was mailed in. So they have the 3 pieces. If they match that up to the original shirt, doesn't that tell them, hey, these 3 pieces make the shirt complete? So there can't be any more out there. I mean, I'm just thinking of this now. I don't know. Just a thought. Why wouldn't they do that though? That should be known. Did the 3 pieces that were mailed in fill out the rest of the shirt? Because then that whole argument is gone. I know. I mean, I know what you mean, Darnell. I know what you mean. We talk about that a lot. Yeah, obviously killers. But going back to that, Darnell, obviously let's just say the letter writer or letter writers, someone's claiming to be the Zodiac or the character of the Zodiac. They're calling it Zodiac. They're using the cross circle. So maybe that's, somebody's claiming to be the Zodiac. And then we know from Paul Stein's shirt that these pieces were mailed in with letters that match the rest of the letters. Like he was saying before, that's the problem with the hoax theory is Paul Stein's shirt, because the shirt of Paul Stein and the bloody pieces are the biggest tie we have with the letters. So if you separate the crimes from the letter writer, the biggest hiccup in that is the fact that letters came in with pieces of a victim's shirt. So at the very least, the person that wrote the letters has to know the killer of Paul Stein, because he would not otherwise have been able to have those bloody shirt pieces. So that is the biggest tie between the letters and the crimes, is that one of the crime victims' bloody shirt pieces were mailed in with some of the letters. The shirt piece would never be allowed to be taken home, so bloody evidence would be the most pristine of all. That's true. That's true. I almost think I've seen pictures of them holding the shirt without gloves on. I mean, the way that the SFPD treated that evidence is abysmal. I mean, we know for sure from the producer of Primetime Live that they were literally. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if someone didn't take Stein's shirt home at some point. I don't know. I mean, maybe they kept that pretty secure, but I know that the letters were taken home. There's no doubt that some of those cops took the letters home for their families to look at because of the mystique of the case. Jerome, my friend. See, Jerome, this show's so late. Well, no, it's probably 4 a.m, Jerome, over there. Go check out the show I did with Jerome. I think I said a bunch of stuff I've never mentioned before. So check out French Wrecking Crew. I just did a show with Jerome. Hey, Jerome, we were talking about JFK earlier. So if you weren't on, you want to go back and listen to all that nonsense. You're talking about JFK. Yeah. I don't know why I've never thought of that before. Surely somebody's done that, right, Trent? I mean, if he mailed in 3 pieces to the police, and Melvin Belli was in San Francisco, the attorney, so a piece came in with that, and then 2 other Stein letters, just get the 3 pieces and match them up to the shirt. Then you have, you could easily tell, are we still missing another 10 inches or an inch or none? I mean, that would tell you if that makes that shirt complete, then I don't know why anyone's ever talked about that before. No, it's this case. It was Nancy Slover was the dispatch operator for Vallejo, and she was all over the road. At one point, she thought it sounded like Richard Gaikowski's voice, and then at another point, she said he sounded just like the actor John Carroll Lynch that played Arthur Lee Allen in the film Zodiac, the David Fincher film. Nancy Slover's all over the road. And of course, Dave Slate was the one that took the call for Napa PD, the phone call after Lake Berryessa. And he never identified anybody. It sounded like it. Of course, they had Dave Slate and Brian Hartnell listen to the voice of the caller to the Jim Dunbar show, who turned out to be a mental patient. And that guy was looked at thoroughly. They even knew who he was. That guy was not Zodiac at all. And he had no connection to Zodiac. He was just some loon somewhere in a mental ward, calling in and making everybody think he was Zodiac, but he wasn't. His name's known. I can't remember what it was, but it's interesting that the Zodiac denied that in the 340 cipher when the 3 guys broke it a couple years ago, that Zodiac said, "I am not the caller to the TV show." That's amazing that he wanted to at least deny that was him. So if he wasn't Arthur Lee Allen, you think he would say, I'm not the blubber over at 32 Fresno, unless he wanted you to think it was. Yep. Said that Gaikowski sounded like Zodiac, but that was 40 years later. Yeah. And she also said John Carroll Lynch sounded like him. Jerome Stein. Yeah. Stein's wallet. Where would I dump it? In or near Stein's wallet. I think they said he took his glasses too. I swear I've seen a picture that cab that looked like the glasses were still on the floorboard. Stein's glasses, but yeah, the wallet was taken. Maybe so they initially think it was. They did when they came on that cab scene. They absolutely thought it was a robbery. You mean Hartnell? No, probably not. I don't know. And people always ask me, do you think that Brian Hartnell ever heard Cheney's voice from his name was Arthur Lee Allen? Probably not, but go listen to Brian Hartnell's voice from This Is the Zodiac Speaking and compare it to Brian Hartnell interviews when they interview him in the hospital after Lake Berryessa. He sounds nothing like him because there's so many years have passed. His voice doesn't sound anything like he did when he was young. So the same would be for Cheney. I mean, however he sounded then would be nothing like what he sounded like, and his name was Arthur Lee Allen. But I'd like to know, like, if Brian ever heard what's called a Bakersfield draw, if that's what he heard, because he said it wasn't, like a Southern draw, but he thought it was a certain draw, which is, Bakersfield had that because they had so many people from Oklahoma, migrate to Bakersfield during the Dust Bowl that they had a particular accent in Bakersfield that didn't sound like anybody in LA or San Francisco. It was a thing of, it was kind of specific to Bakersfield, California. So I'd love to know if he did. And the only way to get to Brian is through his son, Benjamin Hartnell, who is it's in the real estate business out there in Yoma Linda. And Ben was the only one that convinced Brian to do the Fincher film because he knew who David Fincher was, and it was a big deal. But other than that, Hartnell doesn't talk to anybody. Just, put it behind him. Doesn't like to, Sullivan. So I guarantee you that Ross Sullivan weighed every bit of 340 pounds in 1969. Because we know was it February 68 when he got arrested for being naked in the phone booth in Santa Cruz where he lived. He was 300 pounds then. And he was so big, the cops even mentioned it in the newspaper. And we know that's Sullivan, even though it didn't say his name, but no one disputes that that's Ross Sullivan. 300 pounds, 6'2", big guy. But he had that Pickwickian syndrome, which is like a sleep apnea weight disorder where he gains more and more weight. So if Ross Sullivan was 300 pounds in February of 68 when he got arrested, I'm sure it's February when he got arrested in Santa Cruz, and let's just add a year to that. Take it to February of 69, which is, of course, just after Lake Herman's, before Blue Rock. The main sketches are done from the Presidio, from the Robbins kids. I guarantee you Sullivan was every bit. I mean, because that condition he had, you just can't. I mean, he eventually died of it. I think he died in 74. He died of, of that Pickwickian syndrome where he died of obesity, basically. But I guarantee you in 69, he was every bit of 340 pounds. That effectively rules that guy out. I mean, period. Done. Did I compare Michael Myers to Zodiac? That's cool. Comparison wasn't far off because of the 2000. Yeah. You were telling me about that movie, Darnell. Not the David Fincher one. Zodiac basically was Michael Myers with a gun. Yeah, Michael Myers was, obviously concealed his face like Lake Berryessa. So, yeah, I mean, they may have taken some inspiration from it for that character, Darnell. You would know, being an expert of that movie. I'll have to check that out. Roger Craig. I've heard of him. I'll check that out. What were the results of the Vallejo PD? Well, they've never said a word. They never said a word about what the results were. Of course, there's rumors that they found, got one DNA sample from one of the Vallejo letters, and that it was that somebody, it was originally floated around the Zodiac world on the message boards that it was somebody that could not have been Zodiac. So people speculated that it was either African-American or a female. And then later it came out, or I was told through the back channel, that it was DNA from a female. So we know Zodiac was male. So that was the rumor. I don't know if that's true, though. I don't. I know somebody that might know, that I might actually email, because I don't know if I ever asked him, but he may be able to find out if that's true or not, that the only sample they were able to get was a female. And I don't know if that was a strong enough DNA sample to do genetic genealogy on, because if he could, maybe it's someone's child or somebody that knew one of the suspects, if you could trace it back to them. But that's the rumor, that the only sample they got from all their stuff, which they supposedly, I don't know what lab they sent it to, but it was something probably better than what SFPD did, because I think they botched all theirs. But I don't know where they sent it, but hopefully it was somewhere better. But that's the scuttlebutt. I mean, I wish if we could go back in time 30, 40 years, or if they had taken all this stuff better and sent it to Othram Labs in the Woodlands, Texas, to David Middleman and his team, because those guys are the DNA aces of the world, solving all these crimes with the way they can make a small sample and amplify it, how they're doing it. They're solving all these John Doe, Jane Doe cases that have been unsolved for years, identifying these people. Every day there's a new release from Othram nailing one of these cases, or a new guy caught on DNA that no one else could make work, like Carla Walker. I mean, they had one sample left on the Carla Walker case to try to solve her murder, and those guys at Othram took that sample, and if they failed, it was over, because when you test that DNA, it degrades, and they got a good enough sample to do the genealogy on the dirtbag that killed Carla Walker. I think that was in the late 70s, a cheerleader raped and murdered. And the guy was still alive to face justice after getting nailed with the most cutting edge DNA technology known. And only one guy in his lab could have nailed that guy, and they got him. Love it. Deputy Craig was filmed behind the grassy knoll. Oh, okay. Now I remember something about that. So what did he say? Said no way Oswald could have made that shot. I'd feel good for the families, Darnell. I mean, yeah, it would be cool. I mean, I was just talking about, like, Othram solving all these cold cases. Just one of those, I'd feel amazing. Like, if I were those guys that solved a murder like Carla Walker, just that, if I just did that one, like those guys did, to solve that murder, because I know her boyfriend at the time always had a cloud of suspicion over him. And now he got released from that. Now they found the real killer, who was on their radar back then because he owed a similar gun, but they couldn't prove it. He gets nailed on DNA, and just that one, I'd feel totally fulfilled that that family got answers. That the boyfriend now is released from years, decades of suspicion. Because it was his girlfriend. They're like, oh, how do we, sure, you said you didn't do it, but there's always that cloud of suspicion just because he was dating her, and then they found out it was just this random dirtbag that killed her. But yeah, it'd be great to get answers, for the family. Like, as far as the Zodiac victims are, the siblings are still out there. All the parents of these victims are now deceased, but there's sisters, there's brothers that deserve answers. Hey, Jerome, something interesting you figured out. It's Ted Braden. Now I love when. Oh, we talked about that earlier, Jerome. I think you missed it. We talked about Braden being on the. I mean, it's Ted Braden was on Dealey Plaza at 11/22/63 when he has been arrested. He gave to the police the name James Braden, but it was Ted Braden. Is that you were? That's the one you were telling me about. You know what? Maybe that's what John Plaster knows about Ted Braden that he won't say. Is that Braden was on the grassy knoll? I have Braden's military records, and he did take some trip somewhere, but could have been cover. I mean, Braden was already talking to CIA types back then. It would not surprise me if he was over there. I mean, I think Braden, even if Braden wasn't on the grassy knoll, he probably knew who was. He knew everything. I mean, he was buddies with John Singlob, who knew where a lot of bodies were buried, no pun intended. He said the rifle was a Mauser, and he saw Oswald get into a Rambler wagon. Wow. There's a Zodiac tie, because David Faraday was driving a Rambler wagon when they were killed. Heavyset male whistled to him. That's interesting. I'll have to look him up more. Surprised they never totally shut him up or killed him then. I'll have to check that out. Oh, okay. Roger Dean Craig, Dallas County Deputy Sheriff. Okay. He's saying the same thing. Constable Seymour Weitzman identified the rifle physically and with an affidavit as a Mauser, a 7.65. I think it's a 7.62. It's supposed that caliber was a AK-47 round. Or is there a 7.65? I always think it's 7.62. No, never. And I'll never forget you, Darnell. You were there. Sepher was there. Everybody here was there. I'll remember all the little people. Publicist. I'll never have a publicist. No one could deal with me. That's funny, though. That Cantor. We need to do a JFK show. Oh, they shot Craig dead a few years ago. Suicide not. They Arkansided him, Stephen? AK is a 7.62 by 39. I would just call it 7.62. So Mauser was, okay, chambered 7.65 by 50. Okay, so it's a little bit, tiny bit bigger than an AK round. Yeah, I would think that'd be a really rare caliber. Yeah, it's already 10 o'clock. I better wrap it up. This is a good one. Sepher Butterfield interviewed me twice, because he was part of House of Mystery with Al Warren, that I know pretty well, and Al had me on. That was I think the first, I did that podcast with my friend Herschel, and I think that was the first show I was invited on. It was a big show because it was NBC Radio, House of Mystery, and I knew that that Al was going to be the hosting it, and I knew that he knew Butterfield and that Butterfield had something to do with the show, but I didn't know Butterfield was going to be on until I actually started recording that show, and Butterfield was on it. So I was like, whoa, because he knows this case, right? Butterfield knows it backwards and forwards. And Butterfield's super nice guy. I like him a lot. It was great. And he said he had already read my book. And I was like, wow, Michael Butterfield's actually read my book. And he said, he made this comment to me offline. It wasn't in the show, but he told me offline on the phone. He said, unlike many other Zodiac books, I read yours, and I found it to be fascinating and factual and all that. But no, he wasn't a believer in Cheney either, because he wasn't a big believer in Allen. And he told me he had a phone call with Don Cheney. He didn't meet him in person, but he had a phone call, and Cheney told him all this weird stuff about firebombing the Sears Tower. I can't remember some crazy stuff that he told Butterfield. And then I went back on House of Mystery with Al and Michael Butterfield when I found the Avery connection at Bakersfield Junior College, Mikado, and maybe Paradise too. It was, some real good circumstantial stuff. And, and Butterfield would ask some hard questions, but I can tell you this, at the end of that second interview that I did with him, I definitely moved him off of a hard no to a maybe. I felt that. I really did. Because I came in hard. I was like, why, Michael, did he say that he licked the stamps? That, there's no reason he would have ever done that unless he was worried about his own DNA showing up on his letters. And I was bringing the fire and brimstone on that interview, and I felt like I moved Butterfield over on that. But Butterfield, he's, his website, Zodiac Killer Facts, so he likes to stick to the facts. So obviously he doesn't like the hoax theory at all. He's not a big fan of Allen. He said he's not like, he doesn't hate Allen as a Zodiac, but he's pretty hard on the evidence. He's a pretty big believer that the fingerprints on the Stein cab, at least one of them's got to match up to somebody, or maybe not so much the DNA, but I know he's a big believer in the fingerprints. And of course, the Voight story about Lindsey Robbins said that he told his son Patrick that he was the one that touched the crossbar of the cab. I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows? I tried to contact Lindsey Robbins. Not Lindsey, but Patrick Robbins. Haven't heard back from him to see if that's true. You think he'd at least make that statement. But if that's true, that'll take a leg out from under Butterfield, sticking to the fact stuff, if that's true about Robbins. But I agree with Brian Hartnell. Brian Hartnell said this in Riverside Lawyer magazine. This is printed, came from Brian Hartnell. It's really the last time he's quoted on the case, because this came out 3 or 4 years ago, way after the movie. And he said, I do not think the Zodiac left fingerprints anywhere. He was too smart for that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what Hartnell said. I mean, that's an extremely intelligent lawyer who's married to an anesthesiologist who was a Zodiac victim that gave us the most information we have. We don't know about the hood if it's not for Brian. We don't know about the conversation without for Brian. And Brian Hartnell said, I don't think he left his fingerprints. So that's pretty good company if you believe he didn't leave the fingerprints, is Brian in that Riverside Lawyer article, which a lot of people haven't even seen. Jerome, you're 44? Good. I'm 53. Jerome's 44. Chris is 62. You're 67 and 48 days? Wait a minute. Now I'm lost. Yeah. Can we have your signature as a keepsake before I hit the big time? Well, we'll see what happens after the 11th. I could tell you that Wayne Rogers, who was in the TV show MASH, told somebody one day that they should get my autograph, that it'd be worth something someday. When I was doing a little charity event with Wayne Rogers, of course, he passed away, but I don't remember. I was 13 years old with a buddy, and we were in the Woodlands, Texas, his mom got us involved in this tennis tournament or something where they brought in these celebrities, and was there with Wayne Rogers, just sitting there eating sandwiches, like not even working. I'm like, man, I'm sitting over there by this, well-known TV actor. And somebody stepped up and asked Wayne for his autograph. And he goes, why do you want my autograph? You should get this guy's autograph. He's going to be famous someday. And I never forgot that. I think I was 12 or 13 years old. Always liked Wayne for that. God rest his soul. Oh, and happy birthday, of course, to Jason. I did contact Jason. If you missed the show, it is with Jason Collins, of course, Bucker Factor. It's his birthday today. So, yes, Jerome. And I'll get you one. I'll make a shirt, Jerome. I'll get it to you in Belgium. We'll make it happen. I'll have some time soon. I'll get it done, I promise. Man, we got to do a JFK show. See how many JFK people are on here, Jerome? Chris is 62. So who's in the lead? Somebody, okay. Steven? No, Steven's 60. So Chris, you're in the lead. Thanks, Jerome. I had a good time doing the show with you. I think we got into some good stuff over on Jerome's channel. So if you don't want to go check that. Almost Steve. Sold to the old guy for 62. Patty Gimlin's only 21. Tony Dinelli, you're still around? I was going to give you a hard time, Tony, and I can't even remember what it was. Oh, yeah, you wrote some like good compliment about Gaikowski or something. So I ghosted you for a couple weeks because you wrote some pro Gaikowski comment. I'm giving you a hard time. I forgot what it was. Something on Ned's channel after that dude bloviated about Gaikowski forever. Gaikowski's a terrible Zodiac suspect, by the way. Sorry. I just tell it as it is. It's late. I didn't know that, though. Dennis Land committed suicide? I didn't know that. I honestly did not know that, Tony. Dennis Land? How do you know that? I've never heard that before. That's interesting as heck. And on Darlene's birthday, no, don't tell me that Dennis Land was also mesmerized by Darlene Ferrin like Gaikowski was. Why are all these gay men fascinated by Darlene Ferrin? I mean, she wasn't. I mean, I'm not trying to just besmirch her at all, but for gay men, I would think they'd have to be like, I don't know, like some kind of really glamorous, high class Gucci Prada wearing something, and that's Darlene was a flipping hotcakes at the IHOP. So I don't see why all these gay men were supposedly fascinated by her. I never understood that because Dennis Land was gay. Richard Gaikowski was gay. I don't know why they would have been obsessed with Darlene, but it's an interesting connection. But no, I didn't know that he had committed suicide. That's crazy. Did not know that. No, Darnell. But maybe they'll ask me the day after. We'll see how it comes out. Tony, you're young 74. Combat vet. I love my Vietnam vets, Tony. Yeah, it was you, Tony. Don't deny it. I love my Vietnam vets, but you were throwing some love at Geik. I gotta go find it. I was gonna give you a hard time. I forgot what he said. No, it was something about Darlene and Geik or something, Tony. I was gonna, you were cheating on me, man. Something you wrote about Geik. I don't know, on Ned's channel. I don't know, Tony. I was gonna give you a prize until you wrote that comment about Geik. I just can't remember what it was. I'll get you something. You already got all the books, Tony. So what else do you need? No, I'm younger than 8 mentally. You're 67. So okay, Tony, you're the winner. We'll do our own press, Darnell. That's what we're gonna do. You're take a polygraph? That you didn't say anything pro Geik? I forgot what it was. I probably screenshot it. I was like, no, I was going to give you a hard time. I was like, no, I love Tony. I'm not going to do it. Now, Tony's a long time supporter and collaborator on all things Cheney Allen. So make sure you got that Peacock subscription too, Tony. You don't want to miss it. Okay, I'm going to put this back up. Okay, well, that's all I have for now. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. And I'll definitely be doing something before the show comes out. But I didn't know that, Tony. I honestly didn't know that. That's fast. I gotta go back and read all these comments again, but I didn't know that Land committed suicide. It's interesting. Land is an interesting guy. I think that Horan actually thought that it was possible that Land had something to do with the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slings. So if you could tie Dennis Land in with Freaky Fred Manali, now we're really going down the rabbit hole. I don't think our bell's ever gone deeper down the rabbit hole than we have tonight. We're all over the place. Thanks, Trent. Yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll get a few cuts in. When I first, I was at a meeting when I first saw the trailer come out. So I couldn't turn the audio on, and I didn't see that I got in. I saw Tom which was great, and Tom looked great. He got to wear his Hawaiian shirts, which was awesome. And so I didn't think I made the trailer at all until I sent it to my friend and listened to it and said, no, you're in it. Your voice is in it. I heard your voice. So I was happy with it. At least my voice made it into the trailer. But maybe they'll do another trailer before the show comes out. But hopefully I'll get a little camera time when it comes out. But appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Jerome. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Steven. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great night.